Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Please be seated. And I trust while you've kindly been waiting for us, you've read our acknowledgement to our First Nations friends and neighbors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Cassidy.
Sorry about that. I recommend that the March 4th, 2020 council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. And tonight we have the opportunity to hear from the Pacific Wild regarding coexisting with bears and public accountability in the British Columbia Conservancy Office service in our municipalities. Who do we get to welcome? Please. Thank you for joining us this evening. Yeah. Well, there's no minutes.
Is it okay if I stand?
You won't be on camera, but if you wish, you can. So just move it up a bit.
Okay, no, I'm fine down. Thank you. Living with Bears graciously. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Thank you so much for allowing us to come to you today and share with you a concern in our community. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the support we received from Christine Cassidy and from Linda Watts in our asks. I would also
thank you to members of council.
Thank you so much. I'd like to also mention that last Monday, the District of North Vancouver Council passed with a unanimous vote a motion based on the asks, 3 out of 4 of the asks of this presentation. My name is Ellie Lamb. I'm a Level 3 Bear Viewing Association guide for 26 years, Wildlife Advisor on the Advisory Committee for Pacific Wild, Metro Vancouver Park Ranger Annual Bear Behavior Trainer, North Shore Black Bear Society 9-year past board member, of which I'm pleased to have been able to serve. They're a wonderful organization, continue to do great work.
You love bears.
You love bears, that's right. To start, I'd like to talk to you about 3 points. The problem, why this is happening, and what municipalities can do about it. The problem. The problem. This mother bear was killed in this incident.
Really?
She was. Go ahead.
The sound's gone.
Yeah, we have sound, but
Sound's gone.
we don't have sound.
That's
okay. I think it's very evident. So, yes, this mother bear was killed in this incident. The problem. Okay, next is the problem. 600 in 2023, we had the highest number of bears recorded in 12 years killed by the Conservation Officer Service in British Columbia. That is 603 bears, 113 bears more than the year before, and it's been an escalating number. That is a problem. The problem. This family was killed in Nanaimo, a mother and 2 young small cubs, because they came to the community for safety and were in a park. This is a problem. What is that doing to our community members? Trauma to the bear community when they enter in our shared spaces only to be killed by the Conservation Service of British Columbia. They come in for safety, and this is how they're met by the Conservation Service. Trauma to the human community when we entrusted the BC Conservation Officer Service to show us a duty of care to our bears, and they kill them. Trauma, broken trust in our community and in the bear community. Our asks, why is this happening? Why are so many bears being killed in and around our shared spaces in the community? BC Conservation Officer Service decided that bears in and around communities are a public safety risk. The precautionary principle says that bears are big, strong animals with long teeth and big claws, and they can do harm. Those seldom do they. As a result, however, of the precautionary principle, lethal measures on our bears is most often the chosen action by the BC Conservation Officer Service. BC Conservation Officer actions are publicly funded. We, the public, are funding the cruelty that we are witnessing in and around our communities on our bears. The BC Conservation Service recently introduced military weapons that can be used in times of warfare. They are moving through our peaceful communities, and as a result, as one of the contributions to a high number of bears that we have seen in 2023 killed. BC Conservation Service is the only public agency in British Columbia that has zero public accountability and zero transparency. Under the Police Act, there is no other. All other policing agencies are accountable to the public, but not the BC Conservation Officer Service. Let me talk about bears. It's my favorite subject. Why is this happening? So bears are coming into our community. Why? Because they're a vulnerable time in their life. They're coming in with their cubs, looking for safety. That's what they're trying to find. There's sick bears, old bears, young bears, injured bears. They're the ones that we see in and around our communities. We don't always think they're coming in for safety, but it is why they come in. They are coming in for safety, but they're moving away from something. What are they moving away from? You have fires, floods, hunting. It could be big dominant male or female bears that they're moving away from these particular bears because they could do harm to their cubs, or it could do harm to them if they're vulnerable. That's why they're coming into our community. Yes, there's attractants, but that issue, thank goodnessly, is taken care of by the North Shore Black Bear Society and the educational piece that they put out every year, and they work hard doing that. Beyond that, it hasn't changed the number of bears that are being killed, and that's why we're here today. Okay, so that's okay, just keep going. Those are the threats. Yeah, you can move on to the next one. It's okay. So the little, you can back at one actually. The cub in this video was shooed into the forest. She came down 3 times in Comox area to the highway looking for help. Her mom was dead, and she was looking for help because she was starving. And as a result, you go ahead if you want to open it up. As a result, she ended up getting shot by a conservation officer that came the 3rd time and shoot her into the forest and shot her. All she needed was food. A veterinarian looked at the video. He could see nothing wrong with her, maybe a slight injury to a foot, but all she needed was food. There's a rehab center 20 minutes away. Why was she killed? It's okay, just go back to the name. Go back to the main one. Yeah. Okay. Just give me a sec. We're just. Okay. What can municipalities do to help? Our asks have been to establish an independent public board because the accountability with the Conservation Service is non-existent to the public. Body cameras are were not a resolution, and they were not part of the motion with District of North Van. So it is something to revisit in the future. But the independent public board was and has been passed unanimously, along with the Auditor General. We're asking for an Auditor General to do an audit of the BC Conservation Officer Service. And lastly, orphan cubs, to ensure that they get to a place which is a rehab center where there is a veterinarian on staff that is a wildlife vet and an expert and an independent as well, because we lost the public trust with the veterinarian with the government. So that would be our ask. And as I said, there has been motion passed and a resolution with the District of North Van for the independent board audit and the orphan cubs.
Do you know if we've had any bear kills in West Vancouver?
There has been 2 that we know of this past year. Yeah.
This year?
But here's the thing, this past year, in 2023, Mayor. So, but the thing is, there is a relationship that people have built with the conservation officer. They're moving through quite often, so you get a change in officers. We're looking at it from a BC perspective. We're looking at the agency, not the individuals. So the agency is not accountable to the public. So it is something that we would revisit if this does not get rectified at some point in the very near future. So it's not about the individual officers, it's really about the agency itself. Yeah.
I must admit, I feel incredibly naive. I thought that when there was a bear loose in the community, that they were tranquilized and moved back into the wilderness.
I'm so sorry to tell you that is not the case most often. 98% of the bears trapped are killed.
Councillor Gambioli?
Your presentation's finished? Is that the end? Yeah.
Just really briefly, I know that I took quite a bit of your time, and thank you so much. I will wrap this up. Bears are reciprocal altruistic animals. They build relationships when they come into the community. They know they need to get along, and they actually are very nice animals. I know that. I've been 26 years working around grizzlies and black, but particularly grizzlies, and they do recognize individuals. They're amazing animals. So let's just start with that. They're all individuals, and they recognize other people. They just basically are born and try and get along with others quite wonderfully. So, yeah, we're not going to get this video going, but I can tell you that's okay. I just want to thank everyone, firstly, as well, for the time given on this. Again, my name is Ellie, and this is Yvonne, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, such as where we were just about to go, and appreciate the time, and I look forward to having a conversation.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Councillor Gambioli and then Councillor Thompson.
So I'm just wondering about your thoughts. You showed us the graph about the bears that have been killed around BC. I guess that's pretty general, doesn't necessarily relate to the North Shore super well. But why was the number so much less in 2018? Is there a reason that you know of?
So your question is, was there less bears? Was there less conflict or?
Your graph showed that there were far less bears
Correct.
killed by conservation officers across BC in 2018. I'm wondering if you know why that is.
No, other than there's been a promotion by the Conservation Service to phone in when you see a bear, call. And so the call numbers have gone up. And with call numbers, you do have more recording of locations and access to the bears themselves. The numbers have gone up with the bears every year. So now let's keep in mind, bears are self-regulating species. They do not have huge peaks or valleys in their population. They regulate their numbers beautifully. So there's not necessarily more bears. There might be a slight fluctuation, but not very much. The numbers of bears killed, though, the percentage is higher. Last year, it's gone up. As you can see, that the number of bears that have been killed by the Conservation Service has gone up, and yet there's not more bears. Yeah.
So it doesn't, because my understanding was that, anyway, around here, it relates a lot to the weather, essentially. If it's very hot, dry spring and summer, the bears come down in sort of September. There's not enough food higher up the mountain, so they're coming into, the human populated areas to get fruit and food and et cetera. So it's not related. And that's when, of course, the conservation officers come into play. And my understanding is that they normally trap the bears, but if they're habituated and they put them away and they come back to the same place, that's when they end up getting euthanized. Is that sort of the current procedure around
That is
here?
what we're showing. But bears, again, they're coming into the community not primarily for food. They do come down there are some more food-motivated bears, but mostly you're going to see the bears that are more vulnerable, and they're coming in for safety. So they come and then there's grass, and there's things for them to eat. Conservation officers will trap them, and let's keep in mind that because bears are in the community eating grass and hanging out, that does not make an aggressive bear. They're, like I said, reciprocal altruistic. They get along. And are they a danger? Well, I'd like to say that in my experience and experience of many, and including community members, there hasn't been any reason to consider them a dangerous animal at all. They're very peaceful and easy to get along with. And so why are they being killed? That is kind of why we're trying to get to that place where we're not seeing these animals killed, and hopefully I answered.
So my understanding related to this is that the District of North Vancouver is planning to put forward a motion at the UBCM. Our decision would be whether or not we as individuals on this council would want to support that motion in September at the UBCM convention.
Thank you so much for saying that. LMLGA as well, and then to the UCBM.
Okay,
thank you so much for
their
bringing.
motion is for the LMLGA, which is in May?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting presentation. And actually, Councillor Gambioli asked questions around my own that don't seem to have the answers, like why so many are getting killed. And I think about 8 years ago, they were having a lot of problems on the local islands with bears. And, so there was the conservation number, and it was very much not to kill the bears at that time. Has something shifted in the last little while? Is it lack of funding, just lack of policy? What's changed to take it from conservation to kill?
What's changed in the Conservation Service, I really don't know why there's more bears that they're not moving but killing, because moving a bear, it's not ideal, but it should be considered an option, but they don't consider it an option. It can be done with certain ages. There is success in moving a bear, but clearly that's not something they're considering at all. And so those are some of the factors. And I think we just have to learn to get along with these animals, really, because if we don't, we will lose them. They will fade into the sunset if we don't take care of them, and that's for sure. And at the numbers we're seeing, There's no doubt that, and we're one of the few places in the whole world that even have these animals living and coexisting in such an amazing way in our communities. Like, it's amazing. But people have lost them all over the world, but we still have them, and people in our community love nature. It's a nature-based area, and that's what I love about where we live. There's just such a unity with nature, with people, and they build relationships with these animals, and then a conservation officer comes in under their, that they're doing their job, and they come in and they kill the mother that they watched being raised from a cub and had her own cubs. And then these orphan cubs, they're not picking up. They're leaving them, letting nature take its course. It really is barbaric what's been happening to our animals. It's just
It is sad to
unbelievable.
hear. Yeah, my recollection was at the time that it was a lot of human unpredictability, and actually what the conservation officers were focusing on was educating humans to, lock cars, not leave food in cars or things like that. It was a lot more about living with the bears. So I was just wondering if that's changed, and I guess not.
They're public safety agency, so everything around public safety. So because the bears are considered a threat, that is why they're killing them. So they don't even really have to be in garbage anymore. They just simply have to be here. And that is enough reason for conservation to actually have been killing, because they would consider them just habituated or food conditioned. And those words I never use because they don't represent bear behavior whatsoever. Bears are opportunistic. When they're eating food, it's because it's there. They're not sneaking around or stealing food. They're actually, it's just there. Grass is there. And then habituation, well, that means that the bears are easy to get along. They're not afraid of people, as we hear. And in reality, these animals are born that way. They're all individuals, they have personality, but they're born easy to get along with. And they're born comfortable with others. That could be people, that could be other animals, wolves, whatever. I mean, they follow rules in nature, and they're very easy to live with. And we just need that education to support that. Thank you.
I'm going to ask Councillor Watt and Councillor Cassidy, and the corporate officer has reminded me we've got another delegation I've got to get to. So,
thank you.
Councillor Watt.
603 bears it was that were killed in 2023, and that was 98% of the bears that were reported. So like 12 were spared. What measures would they have used on those bears, or nothing? Or they just managed to not catch them?
Yeah, so, and you got to remember those 603 bears too, Councillor Watt. That's not including most of the orphan cubs that they just left. After they killed mom, they just left. And the only time that they get picked up is when a rehab center, or if there's public pressure or media gets a hold of it, then they would try and they'll pick them up then and take them to a rehab center, but they would leave them, and that is which is hard to believe. The 98% of the bears trapped is what I was saying. That is a number that came from the Conservation Officer Service a few years ago to me, and it was unseemly.
It would seem. Oh,
sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it would seem that we probably have more deaths or serious maimings by dog attacks than bears.
Oh, gosh.
I would think unquestionably. So yeah, it's pretty horrifying. And thank you so much for coming tonight.
I think you've made an incredibly compelling presentation, and I suspect you're going to get a lot of support both at the Lower Mainland Municipal Association and the UBCM. I'm wondering if we could get a motion on the floor. Councillor Cassidy, do you want to...
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you very much for your advocacy in this area, and thank you very, very much for coming and making your presentation to council. I really think it's a form of public education. The ignorance is on the people with 2 feet. We don't know anybody with 4 feet, that's human, but so anybody with 2 feet, it's on us, the education process. So when you look at a country like Africa, for example, we bemoan and decry the fact that their elephants are being slaughtered, their giraffes, their lions, their tigers, and yet here we are, a species that is natural to our habitat, and we are, without any semblance of consequence, slaughtering them. And if we learn to live in peace, we're moving into their habitat. They're not moving into ours. And it's interesting, years and years ago, I grew up, the Westerns on TV, where all the cows always stampeded. And then I moved to a country where I was in farmland, and I had to cross the farmland, and I was terrified that those cows were going to stampede. So once I learned to live with the cows and realized that cows don't stampede, we could the same education process with children and adults, and teach them to keep their garbage enclosed and to monitor. And when you go forward with your presentation and educating the public, I think you're going to do a great deal of good. Many people, there was a member of our public that emailed today and said, look at what Nelson has done. Nelson had the issues with bears. Look what they have done, and take some lessons from them. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy, would you like to make a motion and thank our delegation?
Yes, I would. I think I did, but I'll make it nice and formal. And recommend that the delegation from Pacific Wild regarding coexisting with bears and public accountability in the British Columbia Conservation Officer Service in our municipalities be received for information with thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Watt. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. Thanks again. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to call now, we have the annual presentation from our lovely, wonderful Memorial Library, one of the true gems of our community, staffed by some wonderful people.
Okay. Oh, no, wait, this is your good mic, eh?
Sorry.
That's all good. Thanks, Ms. All.
Synchronized presentation here. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'll keep my portion snappy because I have the more exciting Shannon Ozerny here, the head of our youth department, here to present. We'll just give you a quick overview of the year 2023 and a little bit of what's ahead in 2024. So we had an amazing year in 2023. We had growth on every key indicator. So 25% more foot traffic, online visits were up 29%. So to give a sense of that foot traffic, that would be about 390,000 in-person visits over the year. Online visits, we're talking about over 700,000 times people came onto our website or came to an online program or downloaded an item. So that's a bunch of different types of activity. Inquiries were up 60%, so that's about 182,000 questions that were asked. Our program attendance was through the roof, and especially our youth programs, particularly the early years. There was huge interest in that. And Shannon was sharing just recently that we have some spring break programming, and it's already getting maxed out. Physical borrowing was up 8%, and it's actually now higher than it was pre-COVID, so that's interesting. So in general, just a nice resurgence. Definitely puts some pressure on staff to keep up with all of this, and particularly things like tech help is always in demand, and some people getting kind of cross if they can't have everything they wish for, but that is the capacity we have. Little clip here is just talking about the resurgence of interest from the young people in coming to the library, teenagers. We have a large crew of teenagers every night, especially during exam times, and sometimes they're studying, and other times they're socializing. But we're very pleased that they're in the library because they could be somewhere else doing something else, and it's great that they love to study. So. We have our own strategic framework that we follow that has our core values, and each year we publish a business plan. So just to report that we did fulfill our major commitments. At the start of the year, we opened our wonderful community recording studio, and I believe the mayor there is singing O Sole Mio. Yes. This is an amazing, I invite everyone in West Vancouver to come and record something. Maybe it's a story, maybe you have a grandparent who you would like to record, maybe you want to sing. It's a very lovely recording booth. And it was primarily funded through the estate of Robert Leslie Welsh. So this is a generous benefactor who left us a bequest. So really, there was not a lot of pressure on the district for this project, which is we always try to find various funding sources.
This is a dumb question because it's such a wonderful facility. Can anybody book it? Is there any cost to using the facility?
There's no cost,
Yeah, it's
so
fantastic.
there's no barrier to it.
I know.
Yeah.
Is there a voice tuning device?
Well, that I think you may have to bring your own, but I don't think you needed it. I think.
Maybe Andy will sing along with me. You know?
Yeah. Oh, I think Andy did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So additional commitments. We committed to talk to the community about our youth space and what they'd like to see there. And Shannon's here to talk all about that, so I won't steal her thunder. We committed to analyze our non-user areas. So we did a study we have high use across the district. So we have, in any given year, we have usually between 18 and 19,000 residents who are active card holders. And then you can have one card for a family. So it is quite an active library using community. But we wanted to look at any areas that were a little bit less. So typically above the highway and out in the western communities, we have slightly lower use. So we wanted to understand more about them. And I'll be going around the community to talk to people and see, what would you like to see in library service and how might we serve you better. We did a very cost-effective, simple transformation, moving our help desk. It's had rave reviews for such a small reno. It's surprising how supportive people have been. It was on time and on budget. And what it will allow us to do is totally rethink our concert experience, because we have these large concerts with 300 people attending, and it was really like being on a Boeing 747 in the economy section. It was just this long, narrow hallway where people were trying to see. So we also were able to move the Panel of Knowledge, which is an art piece by an Indigenous artist named Halikium, who's very well known in this area, also known as Wade Baker. And it's really nice to see it in an appropriate place for the quality of art that it is.
Gosh, that's so funny. We see him so much, and I don't think I've ever seen his name spelt out.
Ah, yes, yeah.
I'm glad to see that.
Yeah. And I think Councillor Thompson was there to support the ribbon cutting of that desk, and she got to see the staff excitement. And I think we were nerdy enough to show her the storage behind the desk. And how excited we were. So other aspects of the plan, we did launch a brain health collection, again supported through third party, and this is for many different types of cognitive needs. People may have Parkinson's, Huntington's, dementia. They may just want to be keeping their brain fresh. So there's all kinds of different activities that they can do and borrow in this collection. And we also changed some of our solo study experience. So we did two seating studies and realized that what people really need is focus space where they can get some work done. And so we show these study booths are always full. They were completely funded by the province, and we got them on sale. So we're very thrifty librarians, but they're quite popular. And we'd love to have more, but we don't really have room for more. But they're a great experience. We met you in the fall. We were invited to come and talk about various awards that we received, and we're very grateful for the recognition. It's very meaningful to us, but I won't go on again about it since you've already heard all about it. Looking ahead to 2024, we're just finishing up posting the witness blanket, and this is considered a national monument. The original piece is held in the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg, and there's 2 traveling replicas that go around. And our staff received a high compliment from them, saying that our programming was some of the best that they've seen. Very innovative and going deeper, not just having the art piece, but going a little deeper. A major project for us is a seismic upgrade required on our mezzanine floor in the oldest part of our building, and it's going to be a big project. We have to move 35,000 items, and we always do it to try to minimize the impact on the public. So you may not see what we're doing, but we'll be paddling below the surface of the lake. And we hope to maximize the layout of that space. When you move 35,000 items and all your shelving, that's really the time to maximize and change the layout a little bit to get some seating or what you want to do. We received a major grant to move away from natural gas, so we'll be completing that change over the next year and a bit, year and a half. Vertical lift to the rooftop parking, again through grant funding, and then the improved concert layout and sound. So with that, I'll turn it over to Shannon, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Shannon, it's great to see you here tonight.
You as well. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm Shannon Ozerny. I've been the head of youth services since 2011, and I'm just going to give you a really high-level snapshot of some consultation we did this past fall. So I am always harping on efficiency and how the youth department is this small but mighty team. So there are about 4.2 of us, the 3 librarians you see on the screen, a public service assistant who works part-time, and some casuals. And with just 4.2 of us, we had over 18,000 kids and teens and parents at our programs last year, most of those facilitated by one of us. If you were at the Summer Reading Club medal ceremony, you may have almost been trampled by the over 1,000 people. I told them
That was quite a day.
we need to get you some electrolytes, I think, for next year. So we are really flourishing, and we're doing so with this small team. A little bit of context for what the youth department looks like. It is a wildly different space from 10:30 a.m. to noon to 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have this rapidly changing clientele throughout the day. It's almost like trying to keep a penguin and a tiger and a velociraptor in the same cage. We go from the early years in the morning to the school-age kids and teens, and we often have times where we may have 100 to 200 people on the floor with a single staff member. I think everybody always wants a bigger and better space. That's nothing new, but we're really finding that we're reaching a tipping point here. We're seeing these big increases. Our space is starting to limit what we can say yes to in terms of the number of school classes we can have in at a time, or Nehru's story time that is attracting 80 or 90 people that's overfilling a room. So we undertook this consultation. I'm really confident in the data we got. We had a really robust response. Over 400 surveys completed. We had surveys available in Mandarin and Farsi. And you'll see on the screen here, this was a bit of a visual Your Dot Matters voting exercise using pictures. And this was so popular over the month that kids have asked where are the dots. So if you ever have an issue you need to consult young people on, let us know, and we will bring back the dots. But things we learned from these surveys and these focus groups, the number one thing was more seating. And I was so heartened to see this. Kids and teens, the number one thing that they want to do in our library, it's not play on the computers, it's not socialize, it's not go to a library program, it's read books. They want to read books in our space, and they want to study in our space. And what a gift that we have this kind of voracious population who wants to have cozy, warm, welcoming spaces to read in. Right now, it's very tough to get a seat in the youth department after 3 p.m. We had kids telling us that they wanted us to ban babies from the library because they were simply too loud. We also had people wanting to have a more gregarious, loud experience. Our existing space is quite static and doesn't really allow us to do different things or allow for different zones. This one stung a little bit as the head of the youth department. We had a ton of of comments about how aged and dated and worn our space looks. This is not our space. It's simply a symptom of having a space that hasn't had any kind of renovation or upgrade in a few decades. And the other thing our current space is lacking, what we heard from the community, is they want this sense of play and wonder around reading and literacy. That feeling you get when you walk into like a fabulous museum when you're on vacation, or Science World or the aquarium. We can create those same kinds of feelings around literacy and reading. This is our existing space. We do have some safety and accessibility issues. We have these really, really tall shelves. It's very hard to get sight lines in the back. And looking at these photos, this certainly looks like a space for books, but what it doesn't look like as much is a space for people. And what we're hearing is that families and teenagers and kids actually want to be in our space. Lastly, I said efficiency is important to me. We'd be foolish to ignore the really good foundation that we have in our existing space. We have this beautiful natural light. We have this, kids and teen island upstairs that's separated from the adults. And we receive dozens and dozens of really positive comments about our staff. So we're just looking to raise the caliber of our space to that of our staff and our community. And I think this is our last one here. One more switch.
We don't want it to be too boring, with us staying in the same place. So just to say that we are hoping to do a detailed design this year, and part of the thinking around that is that if we wanted to do a capital campaign or something like that, we have to tell people, what is it going to look like? What would your name go on if you were sponsoring? And we will be looking for a variety of sources of funding. So that's where we are with this project. And I welcome any questions from me or Shannon. And thank you so much, Your Worship, members of council, for your time.
Wonderful presentation. Great ideas. Members of council? Just one question. If the foundation receives a large bequest,
Yes.
can that money be directed to these kinds of projects, or how do you relate the foundation?
Yes, and I was sure you were going to ask me about the Italian collection.
No, I was going to make one comment. I love the fact that we put things out in Farsi and Mandarin. I think it would be appropriate if we added French, and I would say Italian, but I'm not going to say that. But we are a bilingual country, so.
Yes, and we have been expanding our French programming, and actually Shannon's done some great work with the Canadian Parents for French, and in getting some online French children's authors programming and so on. So we've been expanding that. So it's very, very true point.
You see, my wife is at about day 1,000 in her Duolingo in French, so
Oh, yeah, you can come to the end of Duolingo.
I'm pretty close to the end of it in Italian, so,
Yes.
but that's another subject.
So with the foundation, some funds, the easiest thing for us to use for the best purpose is things that are not restricted. Some come with restrictions. So the estate of Robert Leslie Welsh is restricted to things to do with music. So we could apply some of that funding to music-related elements on that floor. And when we do a capital campaign, we also will look for some potential sponsorships or naming opportunities for new sponsors. So there's a variety of ways that we can work with the foundation to try to fundraise. And then obviously we would be looking for any federal grants or working with the district on other ways to secure funding. So.
Thank you. Members of council? Councillor Thompson.
Well, I don't have any questions, but even though I get to attend the monthly board meetings, I still just love the presentation. And actually what stuck out for me, this one, is showing the stacks and demonstrating how you're moving from a place of books to a place for people. And it just, in my memories long time ago of the library, definitely you walk in and you just see the rows of books. And you actually have transformed a lot of spaces for people. And it's exciting to see some inspiration for more. Anyway, that was really impressive. And as always, numbers and your responsiveness to the community needs are always remarkable. I don't think I've seen the mayor so surprised as he was in the Summer Reading Club Awards. I think I informed him there'd be a few hundred people, and he looked surprised then. And when I saw him at the end of the night after greetings, over 600.
That was super fun.
Those are the biggest eyes I've ever seen on the mayor. So that was fun. That was fun. Well done. And I just wanted to mention that we also have, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, the board chair, Tracy Watchman, and
yes.
Andy Krozek, her vice chair.
Thank
They
you
do
for
a
coming
remarkable,
this evening.
Yeah, they do a remarkable job, and I don't think you have any foundation members here today.
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay. Anyway, great to see you all here. So with that, I'd like to propose that that the West Vancouver Memorial Library annual presentation be received with thanks and gratitude.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert? Thank you. Discussion? Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Again, thanks so much. Thanks for the incredible energy you put into the youth program. I just have to comment because it's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
We'll now move to reports. The first is on the traffic calming policy. Councillor Snyder. Are we going to have a presentation, Ms. Mull?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff have prepared a really brief presentation if you'd like us to.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Just to begin and sort of set the stage, the district receives approximately 50 requests a year for traffic calming from residents. And so if we were to fulfill all of the existing requests and implement them, there would be a budgetary need exceeding $1 million. So the proposed traffic calming policy is intended to clarify where traffic calming measures are supported and is intended to establish a fair and consistent process to evaluate and prioritize traffic calming requests and implementation. So just to confirm, the policy is intended to manage and address traffic calming requests. Any sort of other work led by the district where the district comes to its own conclusion that traffic calming is required, while it would likely be largely consistent with the policy, that would look a little bit different. And on that, just to set the policy context, so as part of Council's approved strategic plan for 2024 and 2025, there is an action to develop and implement a traffic calming policy. And that was further supported where Council at its regular July 10th, 2023 meeting passed a motion directing staff to develop a traffic calming policy and program to target specific locations where data, so being speed, collision, West Vancouver Police Department suggests there is a speed or congestion related safety concern. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Sean O'Sullivan, Senior Manager of Roads and Transportation, just to provide a brief overview of the proposed policy, its application, and the approach taken by staff in its development.
Thank you.
Sean?
Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Sorry, 1 second. We're just going to pull the presentation up.
And I was thinking you said 50 requests. I think if you combined those with the number that I get in the mayor's office, we'd be over 100.
Sorry, can I take the mouse? Yep. Okay, share. Well, let's see what's down here. This is the one, right? There we go.
Thanks.
Try that again. Share this guy. There you go.
Thank you.
Oops.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. The idea of this presentation is to give you a quick overview of some of the reasons behind why we're suggesting this new traffic calming policy. What we'll do is there we go. I'll try to give a quick talk about traffic calming and road safety, talk about our proposed traffic calming policy, and then the recommendation that we're putting forward to you. Oh, sorry. So I'll start off by talking about the traffic calming and how it fits into overall with road safety. Just to sort of start, because traffic calming policy does talk about road classification. So I just want to give you a quick background of the different road classifications within the district. We have 3 road classifications: arterial, one end, which is your designed for higher speeds, higher volumes, trucks, transit, and the other end is local roads, which are designed for lower speeds, lower volumes, and getting residents to their homes. In the middle, you have collectors, which are sort of in between arterials and locals. And they're designed, the theory behind them is you have a hierarchy where you want to draw the traffic away from the local roads and get them to use your arterials and collectors, which are better designed to handle higher volumes and higher speeds in larger vehicles. It's maybe a bit hard to see. This slide just shows in red is the arterial roadways. The dark blue are your collector roadways. The yellow is the Ministry of Transportation highways. And then the white are the local roads. The local roads account for about 67% of the roads in the district. When it comes to traffic safety, we have many different methods or approaches to improving safety. We look at education, engineering, enforcement, how community is designed and developed, and legislation. And traffic calming is one tool in the engineering toolbox to address traffic safety. And as Jen mentioned, we have about 50 requests every year for traffic calming. So in the last 2 years, we have about 100. And if we implemented all the requests we have, it'd be over $1 million in the last 2 years on traffic calming. So we needed a way to screen them fairly and consistently so we can say, yes, this is a good location for traffic calming, and no, this is not a location for traffic calming, and this is why. Our current policy, which is the vertical deflection policy, was very restrictive. It said vertical speed humps on local roads, and that was the end of the policy. It didn't provide us the process or the criteria to evaluate. So it made it very difficult when you have 100 requests coming in. How do you fairly and consistently respond that this is a good location, this is a bad location? So that was sort of the philosophy behind introducing this new policy. So now we're going to talking about the policy itself. So the new proposed policy has a broader suite of traffic calming options. Instead of just the speed hump, which the current vertical deflection policy has, it's looking at much wider options, such as the speed humps, the raised medians, traffic circles, and intersection channelization. So it gives us a broader range so we could tailor the traffic calming to best address the complaints or concerns from the local residents. To help guide us in the development of this new proposed traffic calming policy, we looked at the traffic calming policies from other municipalities in the Lower Mainland and on Vancouver Island. And we found that in most municipalities, they didn't allow traffic calming on arterials. And part of the reason behind that is you want to draw the traffic from the local roads and put them on the arterials. And then you design your arterials to better handle the higher speeds, higher volumes, larger vehicles. And you leave the local roads for the lower speeds, lower volumes, and more of the local trips. Some of the municipalities allowed traffic calming on collectors, some did not, and all encouraged traffic calming on local roads. And the funding, for the most cases, traffic calming was funded by the municipality, though in Coquitlam in particular, they put the onus on the funding coming from the local residents. So one of the first things we developed was what process would we use to evaluate and implement traffic calming. So this is for a 4-stage process. The first step is residents would come to the district with a request for traffic calming and with a petition showing they have about 50% of support from the residents on the street, or the residents most affected. And then once we receive the petition, once a year in the spring, we'd evaluate each request and based on the criteria that we've set out. And then the requests that meet the minimum criteria, we prioritize them. Which ones we think, based on the criteria and the data that we've collected, would have the greatest benefit, or return the greatest benefit. And then we would do a preliminary design, share that with the residents, and if we set out saying that we need to hear back from 67% of the residents that are affected, and if 67% of the residents that wrote back which works out to about 45% overall, then we would proceed to construct the traffic calming measure. And then we'd only be able to do maybe 5, 6 traffic calming locations a year. All the other traffic calming requests would go back into the list, and we reevaluate them the following spring with any new requests that come in. So if a traffic calming request met the minimum criteria, it may not be constructed the first year, but we come back to it over and over again until eventually we get to it. So to help us to fairly and consistently evaluate the traffic calming requests, we developed a set of criteria. The criteria is that we wanted to focus on the local roads, so that 67% of the roads in the district, that's where we wanted to focus the traffic calming. We'd look at traffic calming on some of the collectors, around schools, around playgrounds, around high traffic pedestrian generators. But we don't want to look at we wouldn't approve, or under the proposed policy, any traffic calming on arterials. Again, because we want to draw the traffic away from the local roads and put them on arterials, and then through engineering, look at ways to design and manage higher volumes, larger trucks on the arterials. So we also wanted to have resident support for the traffic calming measure, and the data that we were going to look at is the measured speeds, traffic volumes, pedestrian volumes, collision history, proximity to schools and playgrounds, whether or not it's on a transit route, and we just want to look at the road design in general. And just based on a quick screening of the 100 or so requests we have, about 46% of the requests would meet the eligibility criteria for traffic calming. And so this is a big step, because with all the traffic calming requests we have, we want a way of screening them, again, fairly and consistently, and there's a fairly large investment of time and money in traffic calming, so we want to have a way of screening. We felt this was a good way of screening the requests, so we can tell people why we're accepting traffic calming here and why we're not recommending it there. We want to be consistent in how we're doing it, so it won't depend on changing perspectives. We want something that could be fair and consistent. So as a result of all this, what we're recommending is that the proposed traffic calming policy 157 be approved, that the speed humps and other vertical deflection policy 02-2382 be rescinded, and $60,000 of existing capital funding be redirected towards a 2024 traffic calming implementation, and that staff on an annual basis evaluate traffic calming implementation program. Staff evaluate on an annual basis future traffic calming implementation programming needs and request supportive funding as part of the annual budget process.
Thanks very much. Mr. O'Sullivan, just a question. One of the areas, and it's a road I drive every day, that I hope would qualify in this policy, and that's Westport Road, because we've got the challenge there, we've got the school, and it's I hate taking away young people's fun, but it's used for longboarding, and boy, I've seen some close calls there. That just seems to me to be a really dangerous spot. That's one. And the other, I must admit, my whole life I've thought the speed through Dunder Ave should be slowed down. I actually was the president of the Dunder Ave Business Association in 1976. Yeah, I know. And that was the reason I started coming to council meetings, because we asked, is there any way we could slow the traffic down? Because we encourage people through Dunder Ave to jaywalk. Is there anything that could be done that you can think of to aid in that? So I got those two questions, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the longboarding, under our current street traffic and parking bylaw, longboarding, as you know, is illegal and can be ticketed by bylaw officers. And I don't know if traffic calming is necessarily the measure we'd want to put in place to manage longboarding. It could, depending on what you do, it could add its own risks or make things riskier for the longboarders who may still proceed. So it's something we'd have to take a second look at and consider so that we target the right solution to the problem. In terms of speeds through Dunderave, it's something we are looking at. There's a couple options that have come up. Specifically, we've been looking at the intersection of Marine Drive and 25th, and there's a development on the southeast corner, and looking at options that we could leverage that development to see if we can make improvements along Marine Drive in that area. So
I mean,
it's definitely on our
the
radar.
outdoor seating on the north side has helped. It's certainly slowed it down, but the south side is still a speedway.
Yeah. And it's definitely something that's on our radar and we'll look at. It's one of the other things we're coming forward to later in the year is we're doing a network screening and identify the high-risk intersections in the district, and through that look at engineering solutions and options to try to reduce the collision risk at these high collision intersections. So I think Marine and 25th was one of the ones that we started looking at, and Marine and 24th, because you're going from 2 lanes down to 1 lane as you're heading eastbound, is another location I could see on that focused approach.
You can see by the green lights around me, it's a hot topic. Councillor Thompson.
Oh, I'm not. Thank you. Yeah, I know Westport Road, I think, is on all of our radar, and I drive it frequently too. It amazes me that longboarders go down there. Do you ever look at I know one of your traffic calming was to build sidewalks narrowing the road. Has that ever been considered for that area? Just to.
I'm not sure. It
Okay,
doesn't come to mind right away.
Spot.
But it's actually we're coming back to council later in this year as well to talk about our sidewalk program. And what we're trying to do is keep track of all the requests we receive from the public for sidewalks and the requests that staff have brought forward, and then try again, similar to traffic calming, to come up with a fair and consistent way of evaluating the sidewalks and then prioritizing them and putting them into a program for construction.
Okay, so you mentioned that you could do 5 or 6 projects per year. Is that because of funding or of staff?
At this point, it would be mostly funding. It's a speed hump can be or a curb bulge could be up in the $10,000 range per location, depending on how much work is involved or whether you can combine it with other projects in the area. So that's where we came, assuming $60,000 within the existing budget, we figure 5 to 6 locations.
So that leads into my next question, because there's a member in the audience, Mr. Schofield, here tonight, and he wrote a letter and basically gave us a little Christmas list of all the traffic calming he'd like to see. And it made me wonder if we could somehow fund this through parcel tax, through neighborhoods, where if you got a street together that said we want traffic calming, they could collectively just, I'll let you answer, you know what I'm asking?
Yes.
Pardon me, through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, if we could demonstrate that the traffic calming measure was of a benefit to a specific area, so not a community-wide benefit, it would be eligible under the sort of definition of service within the community charter for what I think you're referring to as a local area service taxation. So.
Yeah, okay, that's something to I think educate our public on more and more. The final thing is have we ever looked to the province to give us some school tax to do some safety measures around our schools?
Through Councillor Thompson, through the mayor, I'm not aware of any programs or discussion about that. In the past, working with the school boards or school districts, they're of course very short on cash, and their focus is on the school property and the children. So it comes for improvements outside or off their property. We rely on ICBC or other agencies, provincial grants for safe active transportation, and even Coast Mountain Bus Company for support for sidewalks to bus stops. So there's other agencies or organizations outside the school district that we do call on to help us fund some of these projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. Good presentation, and thanks for this. The screening approach, I think, is a very good one in concept, but I wonder if it really serves our purposes in practice. You talked about the requests being split pretty much 50-50 between local roads and collector roads, but collector roads are not included in the consideration with the exception of the areas around schools. And I see and I hear sort of anecdotally a lot of the requests are in that area, so they don't even fit into the system. So there's no opportunity to consider requests by a community or petition by a community for those areas. And just to go a little bit further too, I appreciate the criteria and the screening, but I tried doing a few myself, and a few locations that, again, I thought might be candidates, and they all failed by quite a margin. And, I'm concerned about that. And if they do fail, you also have it written in that there's no appeal until sort of 2 years later. And I understand all of this, but I think it's missing the mark. I mean, I understand the distinction between local and collector roads, but a lot of it is in name only, and in function you wouldn't know if you asked residents whether a road was a local or a collector, particularly through the Ambleside area. They couldn't tell you, with the exception of maybe 15th or something like that. So I appreciate what we're trying to do, but I think it needs to be fine-tuned a little bit to be a bit more responsive. Yeah.
Is there any wording you would suggest?
No, I think it needs. I think the policy needs a little bit of a relook to sort of increase the scope of that to include collectors. Just needs a little more work. I don't have any specific wording right now.
Well, let's come back to that. Councillor Snyder?
Just jump in, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Mr. O'Sullivan?
To Councillor Lambert, through the mayor, what is because we have so many requests, we need to have some way of evaluating all of the requests to screen them so that we can say yes to these 5 and no to these 95. Or not no, but not now to these other 95. So we will, the idea is we collect the data so we can identify the areas of the greatest need. And with the local roads, and the preliminary work we've done, we look at about 46% of the requests would qualify for traffic calming. I'm not sure how many of those 46 out of the 100 are local and how many are collector, but I'd imagine that the vast majority of them are on the local. So, and it's a screening method to try to address the most requests we get. If there's problems on the collectors, a safety issue, I say when we go through the network screening exercise, we identify collector roads, arterial roads where there are collision risks. We'd look at that from an engineering and a separate process to try to identify ways to reduce the collisions or collision risk on the collectors and arterial. So we'd focus that program on collectors and arterial, and the traffic calming we'd focus on the locals. So we could definitely look at the criteria, and we can go through an exercise to do a screening and come up with a confirmation exactly how many of the 100 would qualify and where they are and how many would not qualify.
If I could make a suggestion, because I think all of us around the table could give you a half a dozen examples, whether they qualify or not, of places that we would think are candidates for traffic calming, recognizing that traffic calming isn't the only way to solve the problem, but we still think it is anyhow. It would be a good exercise to take some of those and run them through the criteria and see how they fall out in terms of their scoring and your threshold for consideration. So that's kind of my first level of concern. Maybe do some beta testing, if you will, on some sample ones before we commit to the policy. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. Councillor Snyder?
Yes, so I have a few comments just on this. One, I echo Councillor Lambert's concern in regards to collector
roads basically being excluded. And so, in fact, I go back to Westport Road, which I probably travel 6 times every single day and experience it on a very regular basis. And in fact, I used to live just off of Westport, where the longboarders start their route, and I have actually witnessed on multiple occasions longboarders crashing at the speeds and into fences and shrubberies and longboards going flying, and the cars chasing them down with a video camera on the front hood, filming them as they come down. And I agree, it's a separate problem, and the question is where does traffic calming help impact that? And I know we have, obviously it becomes also an issue of being able to enforce the laws that are in effect there. So that's one of the things that I would agree is a concern, where the collector routes are accepted, except school zones. And I know that, for example, Westport does have a school zone, and there are speed bumps outside on Westport right near the school zone, but it's up during the very steep and area where people are exiting from the local roadways and dealing with vehicles traveling at high speeds as well. So I just wanted to sort of echo the mayor's sentiment and mentioned that on the collector routes. I do want to also express the interest of the ADBIA, who has also obviously very much involved in some of the areas that would be the collector route. Again, primarily the Ambleside, Dunderave area, in reference in particular to between 24th and 25th on Marine Drive. And I agree that traffic has slowed down now that there's one lane traveling on the westbound route. That whole street itself is actually designed, very rarely do I see people actually using the sidewalks, which I sort of like the idea of people being able to cross the area in Dunderave and mid-block, and we've got the mid-block intersection. We also have some other areas where we see it all the time, people just sort of crossing over into the middle, the median, and then back across. And so I do think that is a route where we should be really seriously considering traffic calming measures, whether or not it be speed bumps or the case. Also, obviously, the Bellevue area, which again is, I'm hoping that it doesn't get excluded as a collector road because of the fact that it's a pedestrian generator, which I noticed in there. So I'm assuming and I'm hoping that Dunderave, Ambleside along Bellevue, and Clyde, which are really pedestrian generating areas, are not going to be excluded. So can you explain whether or not those areas would be excluded or not?
Through the mayor to Councillor Snyder, they would not be excluded. Bellevue would be considered a local road, and Clyde would be considered a local road as well. Marine Drive was the arterial. So when it comes to traffic calming, we have to be a bit cautious on the arterials, because that's also the transit route, fire police ambulance route, garbage route. So we'd have to look at on that area. We want to focus more on the collision locations, the high collision locations, and focus on mitigation measures to address the risks at the high collision locations. But definitely we can follow up and understand and learn what the speeds are and where they're occurring along Marine Drive, and see what options there are.
I recall that not Westport, up by the gas station, Sharon helped me, Westmount, I know, which is a transit route, and it actually has the speed bumps on it there at the flat level, not even on the steep. This is just the flat level area there. So I just sort of draw attention to that. The other one, I have a quick question for you, and it's slightly off topic, and it's because it has been brought to my attention by those with some disabilities that have walking is a challenge. How do we go about extending the walk sign at 25th and also 24th and Marine? I'm hearing from people that those with some disabilities are not able to make it across in the time that's allowed, particularly at that intersection. Is there something So I know it's a separate issue, but again, for them, for their perspective, all of a sudden the light's green and they haven't made it across the street yet, and you got traffic at high rates of speed. It's a concern.
Through the mayor to Councillor Snyder, that's definitely something we could look at it right away. It's what they call is when the hand is the white walking person. We generally use 1 meter per second to time that person across called the clearance time. Then we usually have when the white walking man is up, it's usually a fixed time of about 7 seconds. So we could look at that, and that time is for the pedestrians to leave the sidewalk and get onto the road. Then we have what we call the clearance time, which we time it at about 1 meter per second to walk from one curb to the other curb. So what we can do is look at our signal timing and confirm what times are actually in the computer. And if they're not correct, we can adjust them. Or what we can do is we can meet someone who's having trouble crossing the street, and we can go out and see what time is needed to get them safely across the street.
Okay, great. I'll follow up with you on that on another day then. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, thank you. So the 60,000 is just to implement the program. That's not to be put toward any of these remediations?
To Councillor Watt, through the mayor, no, the 60,000 is to actually construct either the speed humps, curb bulges, traffic circles, whatever traffic calming measure.
Perfect. And one concern, and maybe you can alleviate that for me, is by putting it into the hands of the citizens, given the number of complaints and requests that we receive annually, and the inability to deal with the vast majority of them in any given year, are we going to be creating additional work for ourselves that we can't possibly afford with either, through human resources or funds?
Through Councillor Watt, through the mayor, I think right now, in the last 2 years, we've been telling the residents that we're working on a policy to try to fairly and consistently address all the requests we get. And so far, for the most case, people seem to be very supportive of that. The responses that we've got back after we've let them know we can't do anything immediately, but we're working. I think if we can show that we have a budget and that we are doing something, I think for the most part, the residents will accept that we're at least making progress. We may not be able to make progress as fast as they would like, but I think that many of them would accept that we're doing something and we're moving forward.
Okay. And sorry, one final question, and again, it comes down to resources. So do you think the man hours required to navigate these requests will increase, or should this help reduce?
Through Councillor Watt, through the mayor, initially there will be to try to process and go through the screening for all the requests that aren't on arterials or collectors away from school zones. There will be a bit of a staff demand, but this summer we're hiring an additional summer student to help us, our co-op student from the university, that'll help us in general in our department, but also we'll be able to use their extra resources to help us catch up with these requests. And once we catch up and process these backlog requests, I think after that we'll be able to manage the requests as they come in. So initially it'll be a high demand, but once we processing it caught up, I think we'll be well within our ability to manage them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gambio.
The more I think about this, the more I'm thinking, isn't it cheaper to just create some strategically placed potholes instead of paying for this? That's a good way to slow cars down, isn't it? Anyway, I throw that out there for your consideration. So, this is an issue of resources, and I would really like to see more of our budget redirected to this issue in terms of, the roads budget, and especially around schools and around areas with high active transportation density. I really think that 60,000 is just a drop in the bucket. It's really virtually nothing. having said that, I wonder if I thought about I looked at your list of criteria, and the only thing I could add would be, what about those local roads that have no sidewalks? Would it be an idea to consider, prioritizing those areas where there is no safe place for pedestrians to go and speeding cars? Anyway, I throw that out there again for your consideration. I love that residents, we didn't talk about it much yet, but that residents can fund their own speed bumps or whatnot on their own local roads. That's a great idea. If they want to do that, sounds like a bit of a process, but yes, why not? If people want them sooner, perhaps that's a fair way to, that's a reasonable way to do it. So I think that, this is a policy that's, we've got a limited amount of money, which is a shame, because it's really a safety issue, and clearly council and the community care a lot about it. So it's a shame that we don't have enough money. But, this to be a fair and consistent process to evaluate and prioritize these is clearly the way to go. And I can think of lots of places to put them, but the whole point is that it's not up to me. And it's not about my street or the street that I travel that day or normally. It's about all the requests that you have to deal with, and it's a fair process. So, I support the fair process from your point of view.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. I completely concur. $60,000 is a drop in the bucket. I, for one, would be willing to vote to move funds from our community amenity charge to help increase the number of traffic calming. Even if we took $200,000 out of our community amenity fund, we know, for example, there's a project coming forward, and it may or may not get approved, but just off Westport Road, that will be generating community amenity dollars. How perfect to slow the traffic down around any new development. So I'll leave that for members of council, and perhaps you could talk to finance about that and see if there's an opportunity to increase this funding. Councillor Cassidy.
Well, thank you very much. So I have a number of points. First of all, I'd like to agree there with Councillor Snyder as far as the 25th to 24th block of Dunderave. So people come along the lengthy part of Marine Drive, they hit 25th, and as you saw a week or two ago, they hit it at such an impact that they took out the concrete sign and then so forth. Okay, and I know of an accident a few years ago where a young girl, unfortunately, was crossing from the south side to the north side, and as you come down 25th, they took that corner at such a speed that they sent that girl into another existence. She still is in the land of the living, but she'll never be living the way she once had the opportunity to. And of course, we know also about the bus that was going at some semblance of speed and took out a pedestrian in the middle of the crosswalk. So I do think we need traffic calming measures there. I also think the flashing lights, so that when you actually do use the crosswalk and you use it at night, it is very dark there. So I would go for that one. But most definitely, they have to be calmed down when they come down 25th and turn that corner. And the buses are speeding, because I do see them as well. So it's not just traffic. And while we're on the subject of Dunderave, it would be lovely if we could have a handicap parking area painted with the new sidewalks that have been built. The new table area. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Mr. O'Sullivan, is that something?
Well, we just built all the boardwalk last summer.
Perhaps our
Through the mayor to
director.
Councillor Cassidy, we are working with the ADBIA on
Okay,
that request.
because right now the signs are stuck on trees or whatever. By the time people find them, they've caused a backup along the way. So, our big problem is we don't have enough police on our streets. I live very close to Marine Drive, and at night you would think we were running the Indy 500. I mean, you've got these very powerful cars, and I don't know what it is that gives them very loud motors, but they're just zooming through. And I always say to people, if you want to get killed, come to West Vancouver and go across our crosswalks. 2 people back in 2014 to 2018 were killed on Bellevue, going through across crosswalks, you know the ones I'm referring to. So Bellevue is also a street where I get inordinate numbers of complaints. I don't know how the calming traffic move went. Is it still in place? Because they still zoom through there. You know, you had the signs up. What happened?
Sorry.
Through the mayor to Councillor Cassidy, you're referring to the 30-kilometer-an-hour
Right.
signage and associated with that 2020
Right.
pilot. The signage is still posted. So
Okay, well, nobody's adhering to it, because every time I try and get myself down 21st or 22nd to the Seawalk, I get people coming up to me and complaining about the traffic, that the speed at which people are going. But I mean, that Marine Drive is unbelievable, and I don't know whether it's how our lights are sequenced, that they can literally just go green light to green light to green light. Yes, so whether, I don't know who controls the sequencing. But the conversation does have to be had with our police department to put cars on Marine Drive and other locations. So, you know, stop signs, bumps, humps, whatever you'd like to call them, they'll slow them down for a bit. But not unless you're going to be seeing consequences of your actions. Is anything really going to change, if you ask me? It's a good effort, but they've got to be on the street. Simple as that. Thank you.
I will carry that message through to our police department. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just one point of clarification. I wasn't sure if I'm following your process properly. You talked about how people would apply, and based on your analysis, you would choose the projects, and whatever wasn't chosen would go into consideration for the next year. But does that not leave a potential for a project to keep getting bumped and bumped and bumped if there's better projects that come in? And would there be kind of a time period where someone could reasonably expect some response? Or
To Councillor Thompson through the mayor, that's correct. Yeah, our intent is that once we evaluate, we select the projects, we'd respond back to the residents who wrote to us and say that these are the projects we've selected for this year. We'll reevaluate your project next year. So they'll have at least be updated as to what's happening. We wouldn't be able to say that your project is slated for 2026 because we want to try to get the places where the highest speeds are, the highest congestion is, where we think we'd get the best results from the investment in the traffic calming. So it could be, because we've had requests for traffic calming on cul-de-sacs. In that case, that's a bad example, because we would have said we don't traffic calm cul-de-sacs. But we're dealing in a lot of cases with perception. So that's why we wanted to have a screening process where we can collect some data so we can quantify which locations would have the greatest benefit.
Yeah. Well, I do agree that our public can be patient when there's a sense of when something's coming, but I worried a little bit about setting expectations. So the only comment I want to make is, tonight we're talking about longboarding, and we've had a youth present here about their skateboarding conflicts and things like that. And my point is, there's a lot of we're encouraging active mobility, but there's a lot of mixed use on the roads, and which I think is a big draw for this traffic calming. And I'm going to put it to council as just out there. We might want to consider doing a working group to really take a look at this and create those types of lists and approaches, and take a bit of the burden off of staff. But and the last comment I'll make is, I hope when we put the roundabouts and boulevards in, that we don't plant them. Those have been disastrous. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cassidy, and then I'm going to ask for a motion. And this is just the beginning of a new policy. I would like to say I think the presentation was excellent. I think if you provided that to any of the citizens who called in requesting it, it would help them get a better understanding of of the challenges we face. And I think it's up to council to find a way to give you a greater budget to address these demands. Councillor Cassidy.
So to the best of my knowledge, cameras, that's under the mandate of the province, is it?
Yes.
So perhaps we need to have more detailed conversations with the province and at certain intersections along Marine Drive that we do have those speed cameras, because if we are financially constrained from adding more police officers, or we simply don't have applicants applying for the police force, then the cameras would do a wonderful job along Marine Drive. For sure.
Except the province took away that camera ticketing program, as far as I recall.
Well, what are they doing now? Not that I ever get a speeding
Or
ticket.
do they keep it? There is still a...
Yes.
I thought it was only intersections.
Well, I'm talking about intersections.
Oh, okay, just intersections.
So you will be slowing down before you go through a red light,
That's
or
a red
you'll
light,
be
yeah.
not booting it when you're coming out of a green light.
Yeah, okay.
So I
Red
do
light
think we should be
camera.
going for cameras.
Staff do have, pardon me, through the Mayor to Councillor Cassidy, we do have existing direction requesting that we reach out to the province to make a request sort of along those lines.
Well, thank you very much.
Are you getting any response from them?
We haven't reached out yet. We'll be coordinating with likely Vancouver Coastal Health when we do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Just before calling for a motion, I understand there are members of the public who have taken the time to come this evening and address council.
One member of the public, Mayor Sager, Paul Stott, for item 6.
Ah, Mr. Stott. Lovely to see you this evening.
Bonsoir, Monsieur le Maire, les conseillers. Je m'appelle Paul Stott, j'habite en West Vancouver. Nod to your plea for bilingualism. Full disclosure, I'm a long-standing member of the Seniors Activity Centre Outdoor Cycling Programme. I also act in the capacity of liaison to the district for the North Shore Committee of the Hub Cycling. But I'm speaking tonight in my personal capacity as a cyclist for the past 70 of my 80 years so far. I'm a strong advocate for traffic calming in residential neighbourhoods, and I really wish to thank you for taking up this important matter tonight. I also wish to draw your attention to the seemingly biased policy before you tonight. It's biased, that is, towards, I feel, towards the very vehicle that residents are seeking protection from. Calming is often equated by vehicle users as a delay factor, and transport delays are certainly costly to the economy. They're anathema to transport economists, I can tell you. But delay is primarily a matter for the road network arterials, where the items of commerce, travel, inventories are built up, and delays are costly. It's not a matter for the residential neighbourhoods. But many users use excessive speed to avoid delay, and that has severely unproductive and uneconomic consequences. Delay avoidance is not the most important determinant. Without a well-defined and safe network of facilities on which people can safely walk, ride, roll, the need and the public demand for traffic calming is irrefutable. Now, the objectives of the policy tonight and the Council's overarching strategy to improve safety and mobility, including active transport, have been in place for many years, but not resulted in much meaningful change. West Vancouver's expenditure on active transport in the years I've lived here has been negligible. In fact, by far the very lowest among the North Shore municipalities. And tonight we see the engineering department, cap in hand, begging for a measly $60,000, 0.3% of the 2024 capital budget. I was heartened to hear that you're inclined to up that. But nevertheless, it's a sad fact that begs the question of just how will this council make measurable progress in implementing the policies it seeks to adopt. The ideas mentioned tonight on financing were really quite interesting, but I feel that council needs to show some leadership. provide some incentive to the community to make these changes.
That's time, sir. Mr. Stott,
May I continue?
if you're the
I think
only
it's
person,
important.
okay.
I feel the policy is promoting a very cumbersome process, stiff evaluation criteria. And I feel these will pretty well suffocate any resident's effort to improve neighbourhood traffic safety. And that failure is going to green light drivers that they can operate as they wish on streets that would continue to be unsafe for kids to play, for anyone to access the schools or parks or the sports facilities we're about to get on foot or by bike. See, don't be misled by this 85th percentile speed criterion and the 50 kilometre per hour urban speed limit. That's a speed level that was chosen by drivers decades ago. Drivers supposedly operate their vehicles at what they perceive to be a safe speed under their circumstances. And the perception of a vehicle operator as to what is a safe speed is quite different to that of a person walking or biking who's vulnerable to great harm. And why is that? Because there's a 90% chance of a serious or fatal personal injury in a collision between a person and a vehicle at 50 kilometres an hour. That's an ordinary vehicle, not these monster SUVs we see to have in West Van. So the point is that evidence shows that these consequences diminish significantly in collisions at 30 kilometres per hour or less. So, the attainment of Vision Zero, where no one's killed or seriously harmed, is paramount among the changes needed to current road transport legislation, policy and practice. And the motor vehicle-centric policies promoted by BC Motor Vehicle Act are no longer appropriate. The effective means of achieving a safe network, rather than the blanket 50 kilometre per hour speed limit in urban areas, is amongst the many changes needed to support active transport. And I would suggest that success in enforcing load speeds on streets which must be shared by various forms of traffic boils down to impeding vehicle flow. And this is best done by means of obstructions, such as the various options recommended in the BC Active Transport Design Guide. The province is behind these measures, believe me. Speed humps are probably amongst the least effective of these obstructions, particularly the modern designs which introduce a very limited vertical acceleration, which is the sensation that causes people to slow down. The early versions of speed humps induced such a vertical acceleration that it damaged the vehicle, which was a big problem. So the approach mentioned tonight by staff, very thoughtful, very thorough, but I would observe that while accident statistics can certainly help set priorities, what Councillor Snyder and Councillor the councillors introduced tonight about handicapped persons, it means that the principles of a universal design to provide accessibility for all users should apply throughout a neighbourhood. Why are we talking about calming individual streets when we could follow the City of Vancouver example and calm entire neighbourhoods? And that way we can get perhaps drivers to change their habits over time. So thank you for giving me this extra time. I'm going to conclude. I just urge you to embrace an active transport-centric policy and to seek a bolder, a wider and a much simpler approach to traffic calming, especially one that does not require exhausting public input. Most importantly, providing the necessary resources to make it happen, hopefully within my remaining lifetime.
Mr. Stott, thank you for your most thoughtful comments.
Well, thank you for listening to me.
No, I think there's strong support for your comments around the table.
Good.
This is just a first step, and I'm grateful to staff for bringing this forward. And I think we will have much more discussion on how we can better fund the program. Councillor Gambioli.
Well, I'm just thinking, given those comments and the, general comments, does it make sense to, move along with this policy, but ask staff for an update in sort of 6 months' time with the budget attached to it, just so we get an idea of what's really going on and what's necessary going forward?
Thank you. I think we should be having budget discussions on this much sooner than 6 months from now. I would propose, I'll talk to staff and see if we can bring something back sooner. But I think it's very wise that we start this process. So I'm going to call on Councillor Snyder to make a motion.
Thank you. So I'd like to recommend that the proposed traffic calming policy 0157 be approved. 2, that the speed humps and other vertical deflection policy 0220 382 be rescinded. Number 3, $60,000 of existing capital funding be redirected towards the 2024 traffic calming implementation program. And 4, that staff evaluate on an annual basis future traffic calming implementation programming needs and request supportive funding as part of the annual budget process.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Thank you. And again, I think we should have a discussion on budget sooner, but this is wise for an annual review. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion is carried. Thanks so much, Mr. O'Sullivan. Thank you. If we could now turn to bylaws, the proposed solid waste utility bylaw. Councillor Watt.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that the proposed solid waste utility bylaw number 4740, 2012, amendment bylaw number 5298, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Second that.
Any discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Contrary, it's carried. We do have a notice of motion. We don't need a motion on it tonight, but just that Councillors Cassidy and Snyder will be bringing forward at our next meeting a matter regarding commercial uses. Sorry, Councillor Gambioli.
I just do have a question, sort of, because in looking at the whole motion, I just wonder whether staff have been involved in helping to draft this motion?
I think very much so. Yes, absolutely they have.
Okay, because I got some question, I'd like to hear from staff about, other, reports, other experience, anyway, staff who know about the mix of businesses and that kind. I'd like to have some staff here next week.
Well, they will be
discussing this. Who can speak to this, please? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And if you've got any specific questions, I just also ask to send them to staff so they're well aware and ready to address them. Reports from Mayor and Council. I would just like to thank everybody who came and participated, all members of Council at our local area plan, the Ambleside local area plan on Thursday night this past week. It was extremely well attended and some great input from a lot of people. And sincere thanks to our planning staff who did a truly outstanding job. And Councillor Cassidy, we were together on Saturday.
Yes, so I'd like to report that the Ambleside and Dunderave Residents Association had their AGM on Saturday at the Marine Room in the Senior Centre. Their keynote speaker was Mayor Sager, and also with a presentation by the Executive Director of the Ambleside and Dunderave Business Improvement Association. It was very well received, very positive, and it was quite delightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. It was a very nice Saturday afternoon meeting. Councillor Thompson.
Well, I guess it was the week of AGMs and meetings. I attended the Old Growth Conservancy AGM, which was quite interesting, and it actually had a speaker, an understudy to Susan Simard, who liked to study the mushrooms in the trees and how they all react. And this understudy of hers actually took it a step further and talked a lot about how the salmon that come up the stream and that are harvested by the bears go into the floor. And there's a whole new layer of wonder in the forests now. So that was terrific.
Thank you. Can I have Councillor Watt?
Yes, while we're on the subject of AGMs, last week Councillor Cassidy and I attended the Horseshoe Bay Business Association AGM, and it was really quite a delight to see so many new faces at the table, a lot of new businesses, and we're looking forward to the summer ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy.
Further to what Councillor Watt had to say, showing the commitment of the businesses in Horseshoe Bay, everybody came out on a very snowy night. So, yes, they're committed. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to receive the reports? Councillor Cassidy.
I recommend that they March 4th, 2024. Oh, I'm adjourning the meeting. Sorry.
No, don't do that.
Okay. Not that I'm anxious. Recommend that the oral reports to mayor and councillors be received for information.
Thank you. Councillor Watt. Second. Discussion, question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Does anyone have a question or comment for council tonight?
We do have one member of the public signed up, Mayor Sager.
Thank you.
Phyllis Greenwood.
Thank you.
You're still
Ms.
there.
Greenwood.
Fantastic.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for listening. I don't know if this is on or.
Yes, it is.
Can
When
you
it's
hear me?
red, it's on, and you're.
Thank you. I'm here to beg you to let me keep swimming at White Cliff. I'm disabled and cannot walk very far. I've been swimming at White Cliff for 30 years. It's the only beach with parking close to the water. Swimming is my only exercise and it's keeping me alive. I'm allergic to chlorine and cannot go in pools. I try to swim every third day all year round. I have a wetsuit, and I was born with eyes that focus at 2 different focal lengths, and I cannot see digital technology. My glasses allow me to drive. I work full-time at 80 years old, restoring antiquarian books, painting and teaching drawing and painting, all using my eyes. But I have no cell phone or computer, as a system of pixels is a lot of vibrating dots. Even though I told this to ImPark, they promised I could pay at White Cliff with a credit card. I drove there to see nothing but QR codes, which are accessible only by phone. I understand ImPark's not going to get away with only, to put in credit card machines when they can get away with only putting up signs.
Can I just ask where you live?
Yes, I live in East Vancouver and have been swimming at White Cliff for 30 years because getting across Vancouver to English Bay or any of those places takes longer than to just zip up Nanaimo Street and onto the freeway to White Cliff.
Could I ask you to leave your name and contact information with our corporate officer?
Yes.
And I'll speak to ImPark.
Okay. Can I have a little bit more?
Of course,
Is that
course,
okay?
please.
Okay. It was only a minute and a half when I
No,
went to my
don't
daughter's.
feel rushed at all. No.
It's okay. I have had many opportunities while swimming at White Cliff to try to enforce the rules of the park. I have protected the seals from dogs, people poking them with sticks, and this past summer, a young man threatening to ride a seal. I have swum out to tell boats and jet skis to get out of the bay because there are divers here. I've harassed smokers and flaming barbecue people who are oblivious to the dry foliage around them. I love White Cliff. Is there not some way I can buy a monthly or yearly parking pass appropriately priced for about 10 visits a month before my physical health deteriorates completely? I also know people who don't have updated phones that can read those QR codes, so they can't go either.
Right.
To White Cliff.
You raised very fair issue. And again, if you would leave your name and contact
I will.
information,
Yep.
We'll see what we can
I
do.
even have some photographs of my paintings of White Cliff just to show you how much I love it.
Beautiful. I'm glad you love that very special park.
It is, it is.
And
I just feel like I've been thrown out of the Garden of Eden.
well, we're not going to do that.
Okay.
Just one question to the mayor and council. I know even for us residents, you can buy a pass
Pardon?
I'm kind of just chatting with council
Oh,
here.
I'm sorry.
Because, well, please,
Yeah.
we can buy an annual pass, but I believe we still need a phone app.
No, you do not. No.
Yeah.
No, once you have a pass,
Yeah.
it's attached to your driver's
My
license.
friend who goes swimming with me, who doesn't have a phone either, but she lives in West End, and I was thinking, I know, I'll transfer my car into her name or something.
You don't go together because that's an obvious, easy solution. Do
But
you?
also, she doesn't have a valid driver's license, and I'm going, but if there's an accident, or it was just too crazy, right? You know.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
But
Sorry
you
about
go,
that.
you go together regularly?
well, yeah, often, not all
Okay,
the time.
well,
But
we're
I
going to
go-
find a solution for
I
you.
go in the cold. She doesn't go in the cold.
We thank you for coming tonight. We'll
Thank you so
help
much.
find a solution for you. Do stick around and now, any other questions for council? Could I have a motion to adjourn, Councillor Cassidy?
Okay, thank you. It's recommended that March 4th, 2024 council meeting be adjourned.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. Question, all in favor? Contrary carried. Thanks for joining us this evening. Have a great night.